fantasy football fans, it's me, the Fantasy Football Girl, coming at you with another edition of Vlog Times. Week 14 of the 2010 NFL season is now in the history books. A lot of you played your last game of the regular season and are advancing to the playoffs. Others of you played your first round of the playoffs and are advancing to the semifinals, depending on how your league is scheduled. So congratulations and thank you for tuning in. Because every pick is so important this point in the season, more important than any other point in the season, in fact, I want to do a review of my start, sit, and extra because, you know, I like to stay accountable for my choices. My start, wish I didn't have to be accountable for, LeGarrette Blount, the rookie running back in Tampa Bay. We were calling him blunt force trauma a couple of weeks ago, not so much in week 14. 15 carries for 68 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an ugly fumble. You know, I don't know how it is that this kid could score in week 13 against the Falcons, who up until that point had only given up 4 touchdowns on the ground, but then not managed to find the end zone in week 14 against the 28th ranked Washington Redskins rush defense. This is what happens when you gamble on a rookie. They are just not consistent. I mean, they're rookies after all. So I think that is something to be very mindful of for Blount owners and really anyone using a rookie into the playoffs. You know, I personally would like a player who I know is going to get me something, 7 points, 10 points, something, versus a player who has the potential to have a monster game or lay a goose egg. And I'm talking about playoff strategy, which is very different than regular season strategy. You know, and if you follow me on Twitter or you come to my blog regularly, you know that regular season, I like to gamble, get in those playoffs. But once I'm in the playoffs, I like to put the brakes on everything and play smart and safe. Moving on to my sit, which was certainly a safer bet, Marshawn Lynch. Well, it looks like Grill Piece, as the fantasy football guys like to call him, returned to earth after finding the Twilight Zone in week 13. Not so much in week 14. He had 10 carries for 29 yards, 7 receptions for 37 yards, no touchdowns, looking pretty Lynch-esque. You know, if you have Lynch on your roster and you are in the playoffs, either you're benching him or you have like Brady and Hillis and Wayne as well to make up for it. I think that Lynch is certainly a sit in the playoffs, at best a very low-end flex, but look at those matchups, see what you can do. I would proceed with caution when starting Lynch. In fact, when I say that, I mean I would sit him. Okay, moving on to my extra. Not the best move. It was a gamble move for those of you who are trying to do something big to get yourself into the playoffs. Did not pan out. Go ahead and call me a homer. I can hear it. Earl Bennett, wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Yuck, yuck, yuck. He had 3 receptions for 53 yards, 0 touchdowns, obviously. I was really hoping that Jay Cutler could exploit the holes and take advantage of those holes in the Patriots secondary. Didn't happen at all. What a disaster. And you know, I have to say it, as much as it pains me to do so, fantasy-wise, I would stay away from the entire Chicago Bears offense. Definitely in the playoffs. That means Knox, that means Bennett, that means Forte, and that means Cutler. If you have better options who are, again, more consistent, that's the word in the playoffs, use them. Okay, moving forward to bust, bombs, and bonuses. Y'all know it's one of my favorite segments of the week. My bust this week. Normally, I admit I don't like to pick a player who's been injured as my bust because I don't really think it's fair. But when you are drafted by many fantasy teams in the first round and you are a stud quarterback and you go out on the second quarter with a concussion and it's your second concussion of the season, you get a bust. Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, 7 of 11 completions, passed for 46 yards, rushed for 25 yards, no touchdowns, intercepted 1, sacked twice, didn't fumble. Again, he only played 1 quarter and maybe 3/4 of the second quarter. So those stats are certainly not reflective of an entire game. He is questionable for week 15 against those high-flying Patriots. Rodgers owners, if you manage to squeak into the playoffs, or now it is your semifinals and you have him, I hope that you have a backup. Go find one. It is not likely that he is going to play on Sunday against the Pats. Maybe you can get Josh Freeman, or you have Josh Freeman, who again, not a stud, but will get you something. Sam Bradford, even Kerry Collins, who's showing a little bit of mojo as the season continues. You gotta do something. Do not rely on him passing his concussion test and playing in week 15. moving on to my bombs. Because I am a fan of self-flagellation, my bomb this week is the Chicago Bears defense, who did absolutely nothing. 0 interceptions, 0 forced fumbles, 0 defensive touchdowns. To their credit, they managed 3 sacks on Brady, 1 for Urlacher, 1 for Peppers, and 1 for Anthony Adams. Other than that, not a whole lot. Brady was allowed to pass for 369 yards. His Uggs got him 2 touchdowns, 1 to Branch, 1 to Gronkowski. Danny Woodhead got in the action and ran into touchdown. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis had 87 rushing yards against that staunch Bears rush D. Oh my goodness, what a disaster. I think Brian Urlacher said it best when he was interviewed after the game in the locker room. He said, "They are the best team in the NFL. They whooped our butts." I am paraphrasing, obviously. They whooped our butts. They beat us in our home, in our weather. At least he owned up to it. Now, those of you who have the Chicago Bears defense, I wouldn't fret. I think we're going to handle Minnesota fine. They do have a tough schedule coming up, though. So if you have a backup or if you are a little skittish, I'd go ahead and consider them situationally. But I do think, hopefully, this is an anomaly. Again, I'm biased, so honestly, maybe you want to take some better advice when it comes to playing the Bears defense. Finally, my bonus on a much brighter note, Darren McFadden in Oakland. This is what I have to say. Michael Bush, who? All of you McFadden owners who were so frustrated at the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, your patience has paid off. He had a monster game. This is the second week in a row that he's done quite well. 16 carries for 123 yards, 3 receptions for 86 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and 1 in the air. You can't beat it, and you gotta love it. While his play was not enough to get Oakland the win over the Jags, it was certainly a lot for fantasy owners. This week he'll take on the flailing Denver Broncos rush defense, who have given up more touchdowns than any other team in the league. Go get them, McFadden owners. Go forth and win that Super Bowl. I hope to see you back here next week because you're advancing even further. I'll be back midweek with 1 for the money, 2 for the show, and 3 to let go. Have a great day.